Hi everyone, it's Duncan, and I have to admit, I'm probably not the most polished professional PR person in the world. It's time to hold my hands up in the air and admit it. But, and I'm also not the most naturally self-promoting person in the world, in spite of what you might think. It actually brings me out in a rash in many ways to think about pushing my message out there. Prior to the traumas of 2014, I probably was a lot more gregarious. I was possibly known more as being the life and soul of the party, and certainly even extrovert in nature. Following that, Duncan 1.0 died, and the therapist who helped me, Paul, who I am indebted to for the rest of my days, he said, Duncan, you, you know, Duncan 1.0 is gone. You'll have to get used to being Duncan 2.0. That's the nature of trauma. So I didn't like Duncan 2.0 because he was frightened, timid, introverted, and not very confident in the direction of travel of the world and the sort of fragmentation of community and the experiences that made me who I am, having had the privilege to grow up in the 1960s and 70s during an era of love and peace and the swinging 60s, and there was no real conflict in the world that certainly affected me or my development. So I've been working on Duncan 3.0 ever since, and it's kind of culminated in my publishing The Answer. And yes, I am now promoting it and promoting myself. And with that comes the awkwardness of me reading to you my press release. And I'm going to amend it as I go along because I've thought of a couple of additions that might make its outspokenness, might temper its outspokenness. So for immediate release, how might you respond if someone told you they had cracked the code of the meaning of life? Quote, Duncan M.M. Bolam, Nairn, Scotland, 28th of May, 2026. How might you respond if a stranger told you they'd cracked the meaning of life? Asks Duncan Bolam, the purpose coach, author of The Answer, vocational strategist, leadership coach, founder of the Good Being philosophy. You'd probably think, this person's a lunatic. They're delusional. How could anyone make such a bold claim? And what could they possibly achieve, even if that had succeeded? But Duncan insists he's not performing a self-promoting, approvable brag, and encourages onlookers not to write his bold claim off without at least taking a second look. After nearly 3 decades of the frontline redundancy counselling, outplacement consulting, leadership coaching, career guidance practice, and research into the workings of the labour market, I would add, he has built something unprecedented, the Good Being Meaning of Life engine, a codex designed to systematise self-awareness, codify the language of self, dovetail people into authentic vocations, and propel them towards mastery, reciprocity, and contribution across a lifetime and the long haul that a 21st century career might appear. From darkness to discovery. This conviction did not come from theory. Before finding his calling in hot pursuit of a sense of purpose, Bolam burned his way through 35 jobs in the first 32 years of his life. My whole life was one giant career laboratory where I got to try all kinds of jobs out. It was more by process of elimination than by preconceived planning that eventually I zeroed in on my calling, he recounts. The dark before the light. And when that light finally came on, I knew my purpose was to stop others squandering their potential the way I had nearly wasted all of mine. Due to the dramatic transformation it achieved in his own life, helping lost, stuck and disillusioned people tune in to their life purpose has become something of a crusade for him. The challenge. So yes, if someone told you they cracked the code of the meaning of life, you'd laugh, scoff, or walk away. But what if they really had? What if there was a system that propels a life with purpose, anchors people in their own sense of responsibility, and helps them leave a legacy of contribution, and ultimately to self-actualize? What then? About good being. The good being philosophy spans books, tools, and a forthcoming card game and smartphone app, all designed to relaunch human beings in purpose at a time of widespread disengagement, division, burnout, and social fragmentation is seen as a huge barrier to life progress. Notes to editors. Duncan Bolam's 30 years plus as a leadership and sports coach, career guidance practitioner and workforce alignment consultant, working with CEOs, universities and individuals across sectors. His life purpose happens to be helping other people find theirs. That's my press release. But what would I add on reflection, having slept on this overnight with a view to addressing you this morning? Well, I think, yes, it is a ludicrous claim to say or to claim that I have cracked the code of the meaning of life. But the thing is, who else has tried to do that? And why not try just because somebody else hasn't done it? And what I've got on the back of my own life experience is genuine insight into the law of adversity that I've leveraged in this book. Now, there are other books called The Answer. There are other ideas people who have an idea along the lines of my law of adversity. But nobody's put it together in this way. The semantic fog that locked me into not knowing who I was lasted for the first 32 years of my life. And gradually and incrementally, through various iterations of my career methodologies, such as my career dovetail model, such as my talent triangles, which evolved into the purpose pyramid, which has evolved into this gamified odyssey behind me here, with the hilt, the forge, the henge, the meld, the bridge, the hearth, and the beacon at the top. These are each stages that we go through that can help us understand the meaning of our lives. So I didn't set out to break the code of the meaning of life, but something deep inside of me was just driven throughout my early years to understand some of the questions regarding the big obstacles that I faced in my life. Now, as much as my dad was the finest example of humanity I ever met and my best friend, he chose to leave home on the eve of my O-levels when I was 16, and I never got to go to medical school like he had done. I ran away from home, joined the Royal Marines when I was 17 in some sort of cry for help, despondent cry for help. I was invalided out of the Royal Marines with quite badly injured legs, which meant I didn't go to the Falkland Islands and get killed, which in retrospect is obviously quite positive because quite a few people were killed there. And my dad died when I was in my early 20s, and I lost this iconic figure in my life, and the trauma of that sent me into a tailspin of untapped grief that I did not know how to process or manage. And then I burned through this ludicrous amount of jobs in pursuit of some sort of goal that I hadn't even shaped, defined, or attempted to understand. All I knew was that there was some compulsion, fixation even, for me to try and find it. And I was never sufficiently self-aware to sit down and take stock or do the self-inventory that I know is so important. And eventually, when I was sacked from my dream job at Slaley Hall in Northumberland, which is back into the town where I grew up near Corbridge, which was a massive, big breakthrough for me, I thought at the time. I was in pieces. I lost the roof over my head, lost my car, lost my reputation, lost all sorts of things that seemed to define who I thought I was at 32. But then bumped into Mike at Pathways Adult Career Development Centre in Sunderland, and he helped me put the pieces back together again in a meaningful way. And it was an epiphany, and it did change my life. It was completely transformational. So I went from being, almost in a moment, in a trice, I went from being reactive, arrogant, insecure, uncertain, lost, and I turned into proactive, not reactive, confident, full of a sense of conviction, and basically doing a 2-year postgraduate qualification in career guidance was the making of Duncan Bolam. And that transformation justified me going on a crusade and evangelize about the power of career guidance to transform lives. And that was in 1996. And what that meant was that I got involved in professional bodies such as the International Association of Career Management Professionals. I was invited as a student, as a probationary careers advisor, to get involved in the Institute of Career Guidance Professional Development Committee, which I sat on voluntarily for more than 12 years. I got involved in reaching out across the oceans because I couldn't make sense of how we didn't have some sort of international identity, and I initiated a movement to try and bring together the 45 different bodies that had a stake in career guidance and try and get us to talk with a single voice. So we created Federation of Professional Associations in Guidance, where the 6 lead bodies in the UK all came together and spoke with a single voice. And that gradually, incrementally generated sufficient momentum to lead to various iterations through the Careers Colloquium, the Careers Professional Alliance, and then ultimately we stepped into the Career Development Institute that we have today. Now, we still haven't achieved chartered status, which was always the most important part of that deal. And we still haven't really got the profile in society as a profession that I believe we deserve, or that society deserves, because of this inarguable evidence to say that citizens who are turned on to their career and can feel a sense of vocation in their life, they are propelled forward and they are healthier with greater sense of well-being than people without. So yeah, I feel my crusade is justified here. And I feel that if anybody was going to crack the code of the meaning of life and what a vocation means to somebody and why a self-actualized life, or as Maslow latterly called it before his death at the age of 62, he changed the name to full humanness. So why shouldn't more people experience a sense of full humanness and die replete in the knowledge that they have exhausted their potential, they have maximized their potential, they've made a positive contribution to society, and that they have leveraged what it is to do good and to contribute positively to the societies that they seek to belong to and become it. These verbs are really, really important to me. And that's why I'm really proud of this book, because it gives you something tangible to get. It might not be the absolute precise code, but it's a step in the right direction. Please give it a read. Thank you.